Star Trek Picard, Season 3, or as I like to call it, Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 8. I'm Candler. With me is Dan, and this is Grab the Remote Trekisode. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers abound, brother. Dan, how are you?
I'm awesome. I'm even more awesome for having watched the last half of the season. It's amazing.
So what was your favorite episode, 9 or 10?
Which episode was it when they went to the thing and met and saw Geordi and the where they split up? They were at basically it was like every cameo that has ever cameoed in a Star Trek or anything. Every callback was used when they went to Section 31 and or what was it, Daystrom?
Oh yeah, that was I think that was 6. I think.
Yeah, so because it wasn't in the episodes we discussed last time.
Right, it was in the second half, exactly.
Yeah. So honestly, that was, I think, I mean, they almost just got better every time, except for that episode, because I mean, I just about started to lose it when they had the Genesis device was the first cameo, and I was like,
yeah. And Kirk was there, and
dude, I mean, yeah, they had Kirk, they had the Genesis device. Remember we talked about how on earth are they going to bring Moriarty back, and perfectly done.
Yeah,
I mean, didn't elaborate, but it was enough to just really be awesome.
It wasn't our Moriarty, I guess. I guess it was another Moriarty, right?
Well, I think that. Didn't they kind of say they put him into, it was the same program, but they put him into that mix with Data and lore, and
I guess you're right.
It was all
so at some point he thinks he's in the real world, and then suddenly and then he's pulled out, and then he's in a prison. Feel bad for Moriarty.
Yeah,
never thought I'd say that.
That's true. But gosh, what else did they have in that episode? I mean, it was epic. I mean, it was incredible.
Well, Data, they had Data. They had a flashback to Encounter at Farpoint, and it actually didn't look weird. It looked pretty cool.
It did. And I got to tell you, they did a great job of hiding the fact that they were bringing back Data.
Yes.
And because we thought, all right, they've done Data to death. There's, literally to death. He's dead. Then now they've had him in dreams in Picard season 1, and then yet another Noonien Singh that looks exactly like Brent Spiner, descendant of, not Noonien Singh, but what's his name? Who's the doc?
Future self. Put it on the screen right now.
The creator. The Star Trek, the creator of Data. What's his name?
I can't remember. I'll edit in post. Dr. Noonien Song.
Yeah, edit. Yeah. Fix it in post. All right. But yeah, it was awesome that they actually brought Data back and finally and back in a great way, kind of like Picard. They gave him this android body that will age and die. And I guess that's what Data's will do, or maybe he'll live forever, but he'll look human. And, I don't know, but
it's, I would much rather see this version of Data than the Data we got in season 1, where they were trying to make him look like he did 35 years ago. And unfortunately, we're all getting older, or we're going to die. So yeah, that just wasn't happening unless they did some kind of deep fake. But I thought this version of Data was fantastic. And the getting there, the execution. Speaking of execution, sorry to jump to the end, but last time you and I pretty much predicted that it was going to be the Borg. And we were both like, well, this was probably kind of lame, but feel like it might be the sun is somehow assimilated past through the genes. And it sounded so lame when we said it out loud, but dang it, in their execution in that show was, I mean, they made everything work. At least to me, they did.
They did. Everything. It really, I'm trying to find stuff that I didn't like, but I mean, my gosh, this is exactly what I would have done. Just about everything was exactly what I would have done if I could have thought of it, but I didn't, But I got to tell you, the end, they've set it up to do the show that I always wanted them to do.
Yeah.
Enterprise next, whatever. Legacy apparently is what they're discussing. Have you heard that?
I have. I'm wondering if it's going to happen. Is it going to be that crew?
Or is it going to be anthology type stuff? Just, and
Yeah.
now the Stargazer or whatever. It's going to jump around. They talk about bringing back Captain Shaw.
I loved Shaw. He was great.
I loved him. I thought he was, I was just like, I hated him at first and then I loved him.
Yeah.
But, when you do that, how are you going to bring him back? I mean, good Lord.
I don't know. I don't know, but
do a prequel, but who am I to judge? They fixed Data.
Right.
So yeah, it was, and these episodes didn't have any of those moments that I didn't like last time with Riker and Picard completely going out of character for like 5 minutes. And like, where'd that come from? They everything was just spot on. Little bit with Geordi being a little, off, and maybe with the marital problems with Deanna and Riker, but well executed. Well, speaking of execution again, nobody got executed. I'm so happy, dude. I think you and I discussed off the air that we pretty much were trying to get ready for Picard to fight the big, Nova in the sky. And thank God they didn't. There's, I don't need that drama. Look, I don't like the character of Ensign Rowe, Admiral Rowe, whatever she is now. I don't like that character. I never did. She always irritated me how she just kept, no respect for Picard, no respect for Starfleet. It just always irritated me the way that character was. And I didn't want her to die. I don't like characters dying. It's just not, I'd rather leave it open and let them be used again. And I like the happy ending. And let me tell you, that ending, that poker game, that whole scene was
incredible,
absolutely awesome.
It's a worthy bookend to All Good Things.
It really is. It really is. This
Nemesis was not. This was.
Yeah, look, we got some great movies. Obviously, First Contact is the Wrath of Khan of Next Generation. And it still holds to this day. Everything about that, I love that movie. Candler, you also, for the audience's sake, let them know how you text me every single
April 4th, the day before First Contact.
Day before First Contact, yes.
Every April 4th, and I will continue to.
Love it.
Yes.
But this, you're right, this season was season 8 after the movies. This was the capper. And what's great about it, if you don't want to, you can ignore 1 and 2. They're just so irrelevant. I mean, I didn't like
really
them.
The only thing, sorry to interrupt, really the only thing is Picard being in a positronic body.
Yeah.
Explaining that to my brother. He's like, well, tell me what's going on. I'm like, just watch it. He's like, well, tell me what's going on. I'm like, okay, Picard's a robot. What? I'm like, just go with it. I don't like it either. Just go with it. But, and I thought they were going to ignore it, but dang it, they did so many cool things that they, in a way, was kind of a retcon. Like that, all that stuff with the transporter, that it was this slow process that was brilliant.
That was really cool.
And I can forgive them for why, and maybe this was explained at some point and I missed it, but why has the Borg never just sent several cubes? Why is it always just 1 cube when we know they have several? But that's okay. Yeah. That's okay.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that, I found myself that the last episode, I was honestly like, okay, yeah, you love your kid. Let's get him out of the Borg. That stuff, it often happens in these climactic finales. It's not that cool. It's okay, but maybe I'm just getting old. But I'm not that excited about the final battle. The emotional pulling him out of there. I love you, son. Come out of the Borg world, and that was like, okay, whatever. Yeah, it's like everything after that. In fact, this morning I watched from that moment on again.
The epilogue.
Yeah, the epilogue and the wrap up is amazing. Now it was cool seeing the Millennium Falcon. I mean, the Enterprise flying into the Death Star. I mean, the Borg cube.
Fair enough.
Goodness gracious! I was like, all they needed was Lando as the pilot, and that was really. And I don't know where Deanna Troi in her counseling sessions learned to put the Enterprise into a skid like that, but that was some sweet flying. that she it's one thing for her to go, I know where they are, instead of I know where they are and jump up to the controls and fly it like she's better than Data.
Right.
But
So I got to talk about Marina Sirtis. I love Marina Sirtis. I thought that the character of Troy was often written poorly because it's like, I sense you're happy. They didn't know what to do with her.
yeah.
But the actor, I like the actor. I think she's really
Mhm.
great and she seems like a really nice person. And what I'm about to say, I'm not making fun of her. I'm making fun of the director for keeping this in because we're all getting older or we're going to die. And I don't even know how old she is now, in her 60s, I think. When they're on the Enterprise D, I can't believe this made the cut. Data is getting into his chair, and Marina Sirtis, Troy, is behind him, walking down the slope of the Enterprise. Dan, she looks like she's 80. She can like barely get down. And I guess it's the shoes or whatever, but I can't believe they left it there. So please, I don't know if you noticed it, watch it.
I'll have to watch it. Yeah, I probably
it's
was
kind of
watching.
funny.
Yeah, whenever Data's on the screen, I'm generally watching him. That's probably
True. Maybe that was what the director was saying. A minute ago, you said with Crusher, Jack Crusher, there's a moment where you're like, yeah. I felt that way in the episode where Vadic had taken over the bridge of the ship of the Titan, and Jack's like, I got to go in there, and his parents are like, no, don't, you'll get hurt. Yeah, but I can do it. That's where I was like, Jack, just go, just do it. Stop arguing with your parents. Just go save the ship.
Yeah.
I don't know if you felt that way.
Yeah, it all that exposition is a little. I'm like, okay, yeah, we know it's kind of like we know you're going to go do it. Just do it. You know, I don't want to hear this bickering. And then of course the drama of the whole emotional wrap it. And I get it, emotional. You need to show it, but it's like we know there's only 30 minutes left in the episode. We know you got to wrap this shit up so we can get to the get to the epilogue, which we all want to see. How are they going to go with all that stuff? But
let me ask you this: do you think the writers were fans of the character of Worf? I don't know if they. I'm kidding. They apparently adored Worf. I think the writers, their favorite character was Worf. He was just perfect. All that with the bat lift and the fact that it was a million times heavier.
That was really funny.
And the blaster in there, that was awesome. And then he falls asleep at the end.
Yeah. Everything with Worf was great.
Amazing. And that's what they would do at the end, especially now that they're older. But even when they were younger, they come back from a battle, they're going to sit there and go, And it was neat to see that. I disagree with you on the Ro thing. I enjoyed Ro back in the day, and I enjoyed her coming back. And I really enjoyed Admiral Shelby's cameo. I thought that was cool.
That was probably the most surprising callback for a person, for a character. That was definitely the most surprising callback. I think I saw that episode before you, and I texted you. I was like, "You seen it?" And you're like, "No, don't say anything." And I'm like, "Can I say 2 words?" And you're like,
"No."
Surprise cameo. Yeah, it was. And I don't think if I'd given you 50 guesses, I don't think you'd have got it.
No, I kept thinking they mentioned Janeway a few times. I kept thinking Janeway. That's the biggest surprise to me, that we never saw Janeway. I bet you, I haven't read this. Yeah, like they didn't have the money. They offered her. She's like, no, you got to pay me this, something like that. Which but
that she's in the world, and she's already said, I want a show. The actress has said, I want a show. I want Picard. I want Janeway. So hopefully they do something with that. And maybe this legacy, it sounds like almost like they can jump around. It's not going to follow if they do it.
If they do the anthology idea, I hope they do that. I love that idea.
But I still want to see an ongoing to explore strange new worlds. I want to see some Star Trek, and I want to see it on an Enterprise. Sorry, that's really cool. Speaking to that, clear up some confusion for me. So the F was what Shelby was on, and she comes strolling out in the F. Now, was that the Maiden? Somebody told me they thought that was that they were, that the F had been in service for a while, and that was, I guess it had, right? Because Worf, they made the joke about Worf blowing up E, or Enterprise E getting blown up. That was great too, because I'm like, when they're heading towards the D, and and they're talking about it, and it's like, when they're like, well, we can't take the E, and they're like, and they all look at Worf, and he's like, that was not my fault. I was like, that's great. I don't know, was that in one of the books, in one of the,
Maybe
is that just something they dropped in there to explain it away?
I assumed it was not in a book, but
Was
of course they say that the book's not canon.
Did you
I'd
know
never
he
heard
was
that.
the captain or of the Enterprise?
No, that was the
Yeah,
first I heard of it, and I thought it was
yeah,
hilarious. And then I got into, well, what does Crusher know? Because Crusher vanished. I mean, was she still keeping tabs? And then there was the line that Crusher said, "Well, we haven't seen the Borg in 10 years." I'm like, well, what happened 10 years ago?
mm,
And of course, they're annoying. They're ignoring that Borg faction from last season that we don't want to talk about. But
right,
yeah, that was. So then you ask, well, how long was the E around? And then how
right.
long was the F around? I don't know, but
So was the F basically, was it basically the current flagship, and that's why Shelby was on it leading this whole little parade.
I believe so.
Which, I mean, Enterprise is supposed to be the flagship. I mean, that's just the
Right.
bottom line. It's always, ever since, it's funny. I read all that years ago. There was a Star Trek. There was a technical manual about the Enterprise, the original movie Enterprise, written by Okuda. Denise and
Oh, yeah.
Michael Okuda, who basically designed all that stuff. Those two, are responsible for the modern look of Star Trek. But that book had a lot of the history of the Enterprise and the uniforms and everything about why, that they brought that in. The Enterprise there were 12 Constellation class starships that went out there on the 5-year mission, and like I think Enterprise was the only one to return. And they became like remember they all in the old Star Trek, they all had different symbols.
Right.
They didn't have the Delta, but once the Enterprise returned in honor of that, they adopted the Delta as the Starfleet symbol, and that became canon. And then then they also basically made it the flagship every time. So if you got the Enterprise, you were the best of the best, and that was the best crew, the best, everything. So that's why I'm a little bit like disappointed that they just rechristened the Titan, because the Titan has been in service for what, like 20 years now. I mean, it's how new? When did we see the Titan first? And we knew Riker. I can't remember where in the series, in any of the series or movies, we hear about the Titan or know about the Titan.
The Titan was talked about in Nemesis.
Okay.
Now, it
Yeah,
might have been mentioned
that's
before.
when he was accepting command, like he was going to accept
Right.
command of the Titan. Okay, so yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, it's been around a while.
Yeah.
It's and it's not the flagship, but maybe now they've rechristened it the Enterprise. Now it is, because that's the
Well,
crew.
now I'm remembering now there's stuff that Shaw said that they did a refit of the Titan, and he was the only one that could go down to the bottom of the ship and
Right.
fix all the stuff. Gosh, Shaw was a great character.
He
That
really was.
scene where he gets blown to bits and he's like, I mean, I'm thinking, well, he's about to die because like blood's coming out of his temples.
Yeah.
And he's telling the computer to give commands over
Yeah.
to Riker. That
He's
was
pissed about
incredible.
it. Yeah.
That was intense. Speaking
Yeah.
of computer voice, we got Majel Barrett at the end. Thank the
And
Lord. And you hear Riker
Riker
say, "I miss that voice."
Yeah, and they do. It's like it's such a cool thing just to hear them say things like that and know that is that's not just a silly TV show. That's a bunch of people that for 30 years now, more 87 was Next Generation, that they have been intimately involved with that character, that voice, that woman, and for them to miss her, that's cool.
Very cool.
You're talking
It's
about
yeah.
Majel Barrett Roddenberry.
It's
Nurse
funny
Chapel
that
from the
it's funny how the Enterprise D on next generation was. I mean, it was bright. I mean, it's bright.
but they made it
And
dark
then
again. They made it dark.
yeah, but then the Titan is so dark.
Yeah.
It's I mean, it's a choice, but
But when they came back on the ship though, after that initial like welcome to the D, everybody placed assume your stations. The next episode, everything was a little dimmer. It was darker.
yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
they're going, yeah,
I know what you're doing.
yeah,
When we talked about possible deaths on the show, no, I didn't want any of our main cat, any of the 7 to die, of course. But I tell you what would have upset me more if one of Geordie's daughters would have died. That would have, I'm like, they have to survive or I'm going to be furious. And
Yeah, because
thankfully
no
they did.
matter, yeah, Jordy could save the whole universe, and it wouldn't have helped.
Yeah,
It
you don't
wouldn't
want that. You don't want that
matter.
for
Yeah,
Geordie.
I mean, because look at what happened in Wrath of Khan. I mean, what a great movie! They saved the day, but they lost Spock. It's like, was it even worth it? I mean,
Yeah.
Kirk. That was what made the search for Spock so good to me. Was those opening scenes where they're going in and they're just talking about the death of Spock is an open wound, and it affects the whole crew. It's like they saved everything, but they're not. It's just a big bummer. Which again, the greatest death scene in almost all of movie history, I think, is Kirk
Absolutely.
is Spock dying, and the way Kirk interacts with him in that. That's, to me, that's an Academy Award winning performance. You feel the ache. You feel like these guys been friends for 50 years or whatever, and that's a really, really great scene.
I think episode 9 and 10 of this last season of Picard, it was the most emotional I've ever
Yeah.
been seeing The Next Generation. And I really enjoyed the uniforms that Data and Geordi wore. The jackets that kind of resembled The Next Generation. What is your favorite Starfleet uniform? I have two strong.
Well,
favorite.
there's I think, are we going through all of Star Trek?
All of Star Trek favorite uniform.
My favorite uniform, hands down, is Wrath of Khan.
Yes,
Kirk and all the. I don't. It was so different, but yet it's so awesome. I really hated in Next Generation how they'd made it some kind of mishmash, and it was like you could see, like, we don't have much of a budget. Grab those jackets from Star Trek 3.
Yeah.
And then they ruined it there. But when it was full on, what Kirk and Spock and McCoy were wearing, and even when he would open it up a little bit, that was awesome. It was awesome. And then my next favorite is, because I really didn't like where they went with every uniform after this, was the season 3 and beyond Next Generation uniform, with the cherry on top, the ultimate greatest one being Picard's captain's jacket.
Yeah.
Which it was the best. I mean, so I love the more substantial jacket like tunic when they got away from the spandex onesie.
That was lame. That was lame.
It was really weak. It was really, you could see they were going for a sleek look, but they went back to a more militaristic look, which was fantastic. And then when Picard just took it up a notch with that jacket, that was awesome. I mean, really, really cool look, because that Picard, Kirk had his little his funky shirt that he could wear that was a different. It was just a little different style, but it was still Starfleet. It was like the captain has this little special uniform he can use on an easy day.
Yes.
But so those two guaranteed. I mean, it's because I really hated Deep Space Nine uniforms. Didn't really like Voyager's uniforms. They started doing this half sleeve thing, and it's like they wanted to tweak it, but not get too far. I didn't like it, especially because then what movie was it?
In the Voyager DS9 or in Generations, the red looked almost like pink, almost a little bit. It was not quite as red, like especially when they're standing like in Generations, you see both, and they're standing next to each other. It's a lighter shade of red.
Yeah.
I'd go with Wrath of Khan. Second, you might hate me for this. Second is First Contact. I love that's my second favorite. Third is what you said, The Next Generation season 3 on. And then I guess fourth would be the original.
Yeah.
Old school. Yeah. Pretty awesome.
Those were cool. They looked great in color, in that 60s color, that very vibrant and just really pop,
but the jackets that Data and Geordi were wearing, I think these are the first ones I've liked since the First Contact era. All the ones after that, I'm not crazy about. Like the ones Picard wore in season 1 of Picard.
Right. Yeah. I haven't been thrilled with the uniforms in this season. Those were better. Like I really hated what Riker was wearing.
Yeah.
Didn't like his uniform, and I didn't like why they all had to be so different. If they're uniforms, then the very
Yeah.
word indicates
Yeah.
let's be uniform.
Uniform.
So it's like, why weren't they in some red version of what Data and Geordi were wearing? Maybe because
Yeah.
they're active duty, and these
Maybe.
guys are retired. For one thing, I mean, why are they in any kind of uniform and running around starships if they're retired? Are they retired, or were they doing this kind of inspection tour, like, honorable mention? What was the reason that they were able to just move around so freely? Um, were they in the reserves or something? I mean, what are they?
Well, it's not Star Wars, so I can't say the Force. Usually,
Yeah,
everything in Star Wars, well, it's the Force. I kind of thought that when they were on the turbo lift after the ship had been partially assimilated, and Picard just taps his communicator, basically just, all right, to the other six, meet down here. Like it's like,
yeah,
well, can't everyone on the ship hear that? It's like he already
yeah,
had a special thing set for the
yeah.
yeah. But man, I
But
gotta
I
tell
guess
you,
they have to they have to just some stuff you just have to ignore, creative license. But yeah, it was incredible. I mean, the the wrap up was amazing. I'm so glad there is another Enterprise now. It's very cool. That looks like we could possibly see. I mean, obviously the Q scene to me indicates that, yeah, we're gonna get a series, and it's gonna be all the adventures of those guys. Could use a few more. I'd like to see somebody from the old show on there in some way. You know,
President Chekhov, perhaps.
that was it was cool. Anton Chekhov. You notice
That was
that?
cool. Yeah,
Anton Yelchin, and
yeah.
very
Because
cool.
when I saw it, I was like, well, why did he change his name if it's his son? I'm like, no, wait, he wasn't Anton. He was Pavel. Anton is the actor that passed
Yeah,
away. That unfortunately.
yeah. So it was a cool mix, though, to honor the character and both actors, and very, very neat. Um, let's see, what was the other? Never been, Rafi's whole stuff, has kind of not been a favorite of mine until this time, where and they were already starting to go down that whole drug abuse path, and I was like, God, let's not do that crap again. But luckily, Worf got in there and they fixed it up real quick. I mean, but I've never been thrilled with that storyline. And are Seven and Rafi still a couple, or did they clear that up? I mean, because that's kind of an awkward, it's kind of like the Orville now, where our ex is the your
Command is yeah.
yeah. So
And what was going on with her hair? That last scene, I'm like, what are you doing? Just pull it back. You look great. It I imagine that actor has to love working with Michael Dorn because all of those scenes, to me anyway, were just perfection.
yeah,
So yeah, yeah, I like her as an actor. But yeah, the drug stuff, yeah, it's
yeah.
got old. I
Michael
like the
Dorn,
cursing.
I've met him at a couple of conventions, and was lucky enough to spend about 5 minutes talking to him the first time I met him. Just, not just like, here's sign this, thanks, and
That would have
uh,
been me.
chatting a little bit. I mean, and it was funny at the time. I was thinking about being a pilot, and going and getting doing like flight instruction, just private pilot stuff. And he was a pilot, and he was like, "Oh, you should do it." And I saw him like 2 years later at another convention, and he remembered me. And he said, "Hey, aren't you going to be a pilot?" I said, "Yeah, I didn't do it, but it was like Michael Dorn. Remember, that was pretty cool. These
That's
guys,
very cool.
thousands of people, and talk with him for 5 minutes. And then I saw him at Dragon Con here in Atlanta. Um, gosh, it was, what was it, 88 the first time I saw him, 89, and then saw him 30 years later, and just talked to him, and it was like, hey, I don't know if you remember, it was going to be a pilot, and then I showed him a picture of us from that thing, and he was like, oh yeah, he's like, that's crazy, man, that long ago. It was like, yeah. And I said, now I got, my son, this guy wasn't even around in here, so I was excited to introduce Daniel to that. But yeah, he's an amazing dude. You just think he'd be fun to hang out with, because a lot of these the stars, they can't fake it that long, and when they're
Sure.
doing all these signings, but always pretty genuine guy from what I could see. But in my 10 whole minutes of experience with him, but you see him with all the people. But so
It's
fun.
uh it's cool what you hear about that cast, that they still hang, they still have dinners every now and then, they still, they
Yeah.
text each other, all that good stuff. So
Yeah.
it's
It's not like, the old cast. It was like you could never that would never have happened with the old cast. Half of them
no,
they all hated Kirk. They all hate, they
yeah,
all hate Shatner, and even Nimoy, and had his moments with them. I mean, it's like, but they got along the best. But this crew, that poker game, that was like, that was legit. In fact, the director said he just let them play.
yeah.
He just filmed it for like 45 minutes and let them play poker and joke around, and it was great.
I liked it how there was a line as if Guinan was like in the other room somewhere. Oh, Guinan's going to come back. She's going to. That
Yeah.
was, yeah. We don't have to pay
I was
Whoopi Goldberg.
glad. I was really glad they didn't bring Guinan into that one, because it's too big of a, oh my God, it's Guinan,
Yeah.
it would have ruined that reunion moment to me. But it was awesome. What'd you like the least?
I feel like it was maybe episode 6 or 7. There was somewhere in there where uh, I'm about to contradict myself. I felt like in some ways, I feel like maybe there should have been 9 episodes, but then I think a few things were rushed, like when they got the cloaking device. Almost
Mm,
thought that should have been more. It was just, hey, we got the cloaking device now.
yeah.
That felt like that was just kind of out of nowhere a little bit.
Yeah, spend some more time on that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I thought they were going to have a couple scenes where they had to go get it and kill some Klingons and
right.
whatever,
Yeah,
or sneak onto the ship and trick security or whatever. But yeah,
yeah. I thought we were actually going to see them on some of the, like on Kirk's old ship. That would have been interesting. But apparently I read that the hand, how she cut off the hand, that
yeah,
was the Borg Queen, and there was some scene where they kind of explained it, and but apparently the writer revealed that in a tweet somewhere.
ah. So that, I mean, the
So
character she was talking to, that the hand became, it was almost like a hologram, but that's how they did it, was through their
yeah,
connection to
yeah,
the hive. Yeah.
yeah,
And I do like that they wrapped up the idea that, okay, yeah, now there's these changelings out there, but we know how to find them now.
yeah. But we know how to find them.
We just put them
It
through the transporter and it'll tell us, so that's cool.
Yeah, God, all that with the transporter, how they were using the DNA, that was really cool, really
Yeah,
well.
like stealing his body, and and yeah, and realizing, oh yeah, okay, we could say that there was some Borg still in there and they went after it. But that was
Yeah.
cool.
And
And
also I felt, did you ever feel old when he said things like 35 years ago when I was assimilated? I'm like, that just happened. Is that really 35 years ago?
yeah,
We're old, brother. We're old.
no kidding. Yeah, I'm what, 5 years older than you?
I think so. I'm 49.
Yeah, okay, I'm 53. Yeah, that I was 17 when Next Generation hit the air,
Yeah.
and I was already a Star Trek fan.
Right.
Watching obviously reruns because I'm not that old. Born in 70, it went off the air, what, 69?
Yeah.
So reruns, I remember watching it as a kid. The colors drew me in almost immediately, and then when I began to understand what was going on, it was great. The movies, I remember,
Incredible.
we didn't have a ton of money, so we'd go see the movies at like the kid shows that they would do during the summer, and they would
Yeah.
have two. They'd have like a G and a PG. So the PG was like Star Trek the motion picture, and then and I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. And then I remember we got to go see Star Trek 2, and I was literally devastated. I was 12 years old, and Spock was dead.
Ah.
Like, and
And you think he's dead because it's the end of the
yeah,
movie.
and there's no internet,
Oh yeah.
there's no nothing that says, oh, don't worry about it, they're making another one. And at the time they weren't. It's
Right.
only after it's amazing to me with that Star Trek 3 was so perfectly done with the mind meld and the whole thing. It's like they didn't know they were making a 3. Why'd they do all
Right.
that stuff? But it set it up perfect. But yeah, so I remember Next Generation finding it in entertainment. Oh no, it was Starlog. Starlog magazine. It was an old sci-fi magazine. I don't know if
Oh
you
yeah.
ever caught it,
Oh yeah.
but
I've read Starlight.
and it was print. So basically, takes forever, but I remember opening Starlog and they literally had like one of those little pages that they did, remember, with just little news, like a paragraph. And they had a picture of the new Enterprise, little picture. And I was like, what the? And then like it said, Star Trek's coming back to TV, 78 years or 87 years. Was it 78 or 87 years after Kirk? And I was like, holy cow, new Star Trek. This is amazing. So yeah, that was literally the first time I'd heard about it. And the weird thing was, at the time, it was going to syndication, which was, not typical. So it was like, gosh, how are we going to see it? Is it going to be in my area? But yeah, amazing. Seven great years of
and watching. It was, and TNG, I don't know if it kept but at that point it was the all-time most watched show in syndication.
Wow.
I don't know if it kept that, but it was at the time. And
it was the most expensive show ever made at the time as well.
Yes.
Which you can believe with that budget. But yeah, this is it is absolutely perfect. It wrapped itself up in the greatest way, but yet they could still do more if they want. They could still go do stuff. So it'll be fun. All the characters are there and available to show up wherever, which is what I like. And if it never happens, then it was perfect. Better send off than Kirk got in Generations.
Exactly. Well, my free Zoom thing is about to run out, but this has been awesome. Daniel, thank you so much. I'm Candler. This is Dan, and this has been Grab the Remote Trekisode. Yeah.
Yeah.